Eurocentrism and its effects. This is not an insult. We know now that Europeans did not come to develop the African continent. In fact, that is a take. Europeans came solely to the African continent to steal and to loot and for slave labor. That was all, and because they were greedy. There's no development in colonialism. There's just war, genocide, and poverty. And if you think you can insult someone by saying they would be living in mud huts, as though white people are not scrambling to live in, modern version of mud huts, houses that are built out of thatch, out of mud, that are eco-friendly, the same architecture that Africans have been using for thousands of years. It's not an insult, my dear. It's not an insult. You see, it's not African museums that are lined with European artifacts. It is European museums that are lined with African artifacts. Africa was not developed with European slave labor, but Europe was developed with African slave labor. Africans did not plagiarize European artists in their art, but Europeans made sure to plagiarize and take credit for African art. You see, most of Africa was sophisticated to the point that most of Africa lived within nature and as a part of nature and did not destroy nature in the way that Europeans did. You see, if we complain now about climate change and the climate crisis, we have Europeans to blame. Neocolonial capitalism is not something to write home about. Also, Europeans didn't even realize people had to take baths until, a lot of white people still don't take baths, And also, Africans existed within nature, and therefore their huts were not a sign or symbol of evolutionary development, but a consciousness to never to destroy nature, but to take care of nature and exist as a part of nature. Africans did not have the European consciousness of living outside of nature, therefore having the authority to take from nature and never to give to nature. So if you want to insult Africans, don't use mud huts as an example, because the climate crisis and the fact that concrete buildings are not eco-friendly and are not good for human beings, literally, is indicative of the fact that mud huts are actually much more sustainable and much more better for the livelihood of human beings than concrete buildings. Or did you not know that concrete is not good for the environment or not good for human beings' lungs? Breathing in concrete is not good for your lungs. You didn't know that?
It's quite interesting, at least to me, how with each passing year, I have come to realize just how progressive ancient Africans actually were. Because a lot of the things that they did and how they used to live their lives, their culture, their tradition, and all of that were once considered barbaric, right, in comparison to our modern way of living, is now coming back to light as the best way to actually be living. The mud hut is an example. Walking around barefooted is another example. Lately, we are seeing doctors coming out talking about how walking around barefooted is a good thing and is something that we should, put into our day-to-day activities, because our legs are supposed to be touching the earth a lot more frequently. It's actually a healthy thing that we are supposed to be doing.
How being barefoot can improve your blood.
Today we're gonna see how the earthing or the grounding affects your blood. We're gonna take her blood, put it on the slide, microscopic slide, and take a look. As you can see, all her red blood cells are stacked up. This is called a stacked up cell. And see, let's go see if the earthing can help improve a little. They're actually earthing right now, and they're just starting to ground. So we'll see them back in 10 minutes. Let's see how the earthing or the grounding has affected her blood. Okay. As you can see, the blood, before and after the earthing is obviously changed. So after you do the earthing, the blood can circulate back. This is a good example.
It's crazy how our ancestors went down in history as barbaric and backward for these practices. But now modern science is coming out talking about, oh, it's actually a good thing that we are supposed to be doing, and they're calling it earthing now. They called our ancestors barbaric and uncivilized for various reasons. Reasons that were fueled by greed because they wanted what our ancestors had, so they decided to come up with lies so they could justify the actions that they took to get what our ancestors had. Reasons that were fueled by ignorance because they did not understand the ways of our ancestors, so they demonized those ways. We need to start giving our ancestors the accolades they deserve. We presently think we are smart, but this smartness that we think we have that is actually mumu is killing us. We need to stop thinking about viewing our ancestors and their practices through the lens of the colonizers. It definitely wasn't because they couldn't make footwears. They must have known that they were better off without it. And there are other examples as well that unfortunately we cannot get to in this one video. Examples of things that the Western world is now coming to realize that are good things that we are supposed to be doing that ancient Africans had been doing for thousands of years, right? But back to mud huts for a second. Have you guys ever been in a mud hut? It's so cool in there. It's fascinating. Like, you don't even need AC. Like, it could be freaking hot outside, but the second you step into a mud hut, it's always so cool and relaxing in there. Someone once tried to explain to me the mechanics, or should I say the science behind why that is always the case in a mud hut. Long story short, our ancestors deserve way more credit than they've been given. They were mad smart. Now, we in this modern era are now going back in time to do what ancient Africans were doing. We thought we were smart, but they knew better, obviously. It's the same thing with how, there is this talk of how we should take care of the environment, right? Which we should do, as a matter of fact. But if you look at history and if you study the ways of our ancient ancestors, right, they had always respected and taken care of the environment. As a matter of fact, our ancestors revered nature, and it's even incorporated with their ancient spiritual practices, African spirituality, right? If you look into African spirituality, you would see that reverencing nature and taking care of nature is very sacrosanct in the practice. Our ancestors respected nature and they took care of nature. They understood that they had to live in peace with nature and they had to follow the laws of nature. When you put these things into perspective like this, then you start to see the fact, which is colonization did not bring us any civilization. What colonization did to us as a people was that it interrupted our civilization. If the modern world is now pushing for us to go back to the practice and the ways of our ancestors, imagine if our ancestors were left alone. Where do you think we would be right now? How exactly do you think we would have been living? Unfortunately, we would never know. And when I think of these examples and other examples that unfortunately we cannot get to in this video, it's quite unfortunate how we as a society start following the ways and the thinking of people that actually came into existence 6,000 years ago. Our ancestors had been in existence for thousands upon thousands of years. Of course, they would know better because they've been here the longest, right? But somehow these colonizers were able to, come in and infiltrate and make the world believe that their ways is the best, but they just came into existence like yesterday. It's actually a very unfortunate, situation we're living in, right? Where for hundreds of years, we were literally forced to listen to and follow the ways of babies.
Tell you what, take everything you think we have because of you back. That and yourselves. Leave us with the bush. Leave us in the bush. I'm happy. I will choose the bush. Give me the bush. Give me the bush. I want to run in the bush. Take all your shit and go back. And whatever it is you think you brought here, whatever it is you think you built here, put it on your ship and go back and leave us in the bush. Leave us in our sophisticated ecosystem that you call the bush. I promise you, we will not miss you and we'll be fine without you because we were for millennia before that. I dare you. Take your shit and go.
I don't understand why people in the West feel like a village is an insult. Like, oh, Thames should have stayed and worn her white dress in her village. Now, usually, when I see these kinds of videos, people proceed to show that no, Africa doesn't just have villages, it also has cities, which we do have. But I don't have to prove that to you. What's wrong with a village? this is not the first time I've gotten comments like this. Like, the last time it was from like an American, they were like, oh, you probably just come from some village. I'm like, what's wrong with a village? Both my parents grew up in villages. You guys like bragging about, oh my god, like I eat organic food only. What do you think people in villages eat? Oh my god, I'm such an environmentalist. Like, I built my house with eco-friendly material. People in villages live in eco-friendly housing. So it's classy when you do it, but it's primitive when we do it. You're not invited to any of our villages.